I'm glad you could join us here at Preaching by Heart. Several years ago, Reverend Dr. Mellon Kennedy and I created this program, and we've traveled around the country speaking to religious leaders and sharing some of the ancient wisdom of extemporaneous speaking, some of the techniques and some of the wisdom that has flowed down the ages, which can be distilled in what is happening today, in the demand that people want authenticity. They want people who can talk to them as though they were talking to them, not talking at them. Recently, we did a program at Harvard Divinity School, co-sponsored by that school, and it included clergy and students and community leaders. And what we found is that the heart of learning this art is discovering your own voice. We hope that what we share here in this section, which is called Why It Matters, is helpful to you in making your next step toward speaking or preaching by heart. Reverend Dr. Mellon Kennedy.
When I was in seminary, I had two teachers for Bible who were fabulous, and they kept saying, they explained that in any given time, there are agonies of that era. There are troubles that people are experiencing. And the religion or the sage, the teacher who captures people's attention is the one who responds to the agony of that era. The one who has a message on target, who scratches the itch. So that has really stayed with me, and it's been a guiding light for me, and wondering and asking myself, what are the agonies of our era? And I just want to pause and ask you to answer that for yourself. What are the agonies of our era? As I've thought about it, one of the agonies of our era, everything's plastic. What's authentic anymore? What's real? It looks lovely, but you know what? It's plastic. What is real? People are hungry, desperate for something authentic, something real. So much so they'll even watch faux reality TV because it looks, even though we know it's not. There's a hunger for authenticity. And what I love about this mode of speaking is the authenticity, the earnestness, as Stephen put it, from Ware's text. And in speaking without a text, speaking authentically, what we're doing is I'm saying, I have engaged theologically with this issue. I have engaged deeply with it. I'm sharing from my heart my best take right now on this issue, this topic. Not that I've got all the answers, not that I'm right, not that I am trying to convince you to believe like me, but I'm saying, I can live authentically and so can you. You can also wrangle with the important questions in your life and in our culture and find answers. We are theological beings. We are spiritual beings. And so by speaking authentically, by being real, we're feeding people in one of the greatest hungers of our time, authenticity. Not that they have to agree with every word that I say, but that they know I'm doing my best to be real about it and engaging them to be real themselves and affirming that they can. So that's one of the reasons why I think this matters. Another agony of our era people long to be seen and heard. People are isolated. People feel disconnected. I mentioned I'm a psychologist as well as a minister. I've done a lot of reading on social networks and the decline of social networks over time. It used to be people had family, people had communities, and nowadays it's much less true. People feel disconnected, unseen, lonely. When social scientists these days ask people if they're lonely, a lot of people ask people, who can you turn to? And nobody. A lot of people say nobody. People are looking for connection. And when we preach in this style and we make eye contact, and we make heart-to-heart contact, it's feeding a profound longing of the agony of our era of disconnectedness, to actually connect through our words, through our eye contact, through our hearts, through our physical presence. Just that is healing, regardless of what we say, because it's such a profound agony of our era.
Reverend Stephen Schick continues the theme by sharing the agony of another era that has relevance to us today. New communicative world. So I want to make it real clear what it was like in 1826 here in this place at Harvard Divinity School. A man named Henry Ward Jr., should put a junior up there. Henry Ward Jr. was the professor of preaching and pulpit excellence. And he wanted to tell people that they should preach extemporaneously. This is a Unitarian, not a Universalist. In the Universalist tradition, they were already got the message. They were out there and they were building what was then the fourth or fifth largest denomination. They were out there preaching without scripts. The Unitarians were a little slow. And Henry Ware wrote a book, and you have a little excerpt of it in your packet. He wrote a book, and it was used for that whole century by Methodists and Presbyterians and others, included it in their textbooks. Not so much the Unitarians, who said you got to write it out. And anyway, this is not an either or. Sometimes there's a time to write, sometimes there's a time to not write. But anyway, so why did he think it was important is an answer to the question of today, which I think the TED Talk people got when they said, if you're going to be an expert and come and talk to us, we don't think you need notes. Why would you need notes? So TED Talks are the standard. Moth's story hour is the standard. People getting up, relating directly with people, not looking at a script. That's the new standard. How we get to be in communication with people today is people want it more informal. They don't want sages on the stage. They want direct communication. So Ware was confronted with this problem, the New Awakening, the Second Great Awakening. For those who haven't studied it, doesn't really matter, but this is the cliff notes of it. The Second Great Awakening was roaring through Boston. It had already taken over the countrysides. It was a fundamentalist way of looking at religion in reaction to the liberal, the Jeffersonian, the emerging Emerson way of thinking. They had another way of communicating their message, and it was coming into Boston. And these people were not using texts. They were using a text, which was the text, the Bible, but they were not using any script to preach. And so Ware says, well, this is a pretty good idea, because what he knew was you get people's attention when you're not looking at a piece of paper.
Do I have your attention when I'm looking at you in the eye? Do I have your attention? Yes. The answer is clear. And it's natural. I remember when I traveled around the country for the Unitarian Universalists on social justice and peace issues for about 12 years. And I remember riding on the plane, going to my next gig, and I had wrote my text out, and I remember writing big gesture here. Smile here. Get the drift. Wasn't natural. What's natural is that when it's coming, when it happens. And when you're surprised by what happens, everybody else in the room is going to be surprised. That's the way it is. And you're more animated. Another thing. He used the term soul enlivening, soul lifting. When I'm alive, I'm lifted up, and everyone around me is lifted up. I mean, you just know that. That's just core communications. When you're smiling, you know, I don't have to be smiling. I might be telling something very tragic. But if my heart is lifted by it, if I'm really feeling engaged, then it's going to come through. And it gives people more emotional accessibility. Not behind the pulpit. I don't know how accessible it is to anybody standing behind that pulpit. And maybe it was at a time. Maybe that was right then. But the question is, what's right now? It was good then, maybe not. And then he uses a word, I love it. He says, you're going to come across earnest. I would say authentic. Earnest. That's why it matters. People relate to you. They're going to take whatever you say. This is just a truism if you haven't preached too much. You may know exactly what you're going to talk about, but that's not what people are hearing. I mean, let's just get it straight. I mean, they're going to hear whatever they hear. They're going to take it in. But the odds are that you're going to touch their heart in a deeper way and lift them up through this method than if you're tied to a script. So, anyway, that's why it matters to me.
Let's just open the floor and have a few minutes for your thoughts or reflections on anything you've heard so far. My whole question. David, right?
Yes. I was thinking about the heart in the head, and I've recognized the dichotomy myself for quite some time. In my head, I'm a humanist. We arise from the cosmos, go back to the cosmos. End of life is end of life, which is meld back in. And in my heart, I'm a universalist. So we will all spend eternity in heaven praising God. So, and the two, I have found a way to live with the two in harmony, even though they seem like such a dichotomy. And I think my sermons are best when the two are melded. I don't know that I would say one has to lead the other, the quote we gave, but the two melded together is when I feel that I've touched the most people and something in people, and they seem to be responding to it. So I just
Yeah. Thank you, David.
And we, I came into the Unitarian Universalists through the humanist door myself. We make this dichotomy, and it's crazy making sometimes. The Universalists were put down in the 19th century by the educated Unitarians, except for Henry Ware, because they didn't seem like they were intellectual enough. Now, there needed to be a balance back then, a balance between the Unitarians and the Universalists. So someone like Hosea Ballou, one of the patron saints of Universalism, you know, started to write his scripts to prove to people that he was an intellectual, which he was. and so I think it's always trying to find the balance that's comfortable for you, whatever works. And if you're authentic, then it's going to work.
I'm very struck by how a powerful speaker makes for a powerful listener. So I'm fascinated by everything that's happening now and will continue to happen today because of what it triggers in the listening heart and the listening brain.
Interesting. Yeah. Ken.
My connection with you over the years has been primarily small group ministry, and I think at least that was the origin of what we put together. And I've long held that in a place, and then preaching about growth, preaching about anti-racism, preaching about small group ministry. About 4 or 5 years ago, I realized they were all the same, and it just struck me again that I had never associated speaking without a script or preaching without a script to the very same. They're all the same. We just need to find those connections and lift them up and embrace them to live authentically with it. Like a long way to go.
Thank you, Ken. Yes.
I felt lifted. I felt my heart lift. I went with you wherever you went. And that was so powerful to experience. I also experienced it a few months ago in January at the when I Stephen preaching that way. And I felt nourished in a way that I hadn't been nourished in a long time. So I'm so excited to be here and to make that connection again, because I think that connection might be the only thing that will push me past my fear. Of not saying what needs to be said, or saying something that's going out of the direction I was going in, of staying on target. So, having that faith, having that confidence, I really appreciate the experience of allowing us to arrive to be lifted up in that way.
What I've realized is the fear is irrelevant. Because the world needs healing, and we are each a channel for that. And it's so important. And it's not about me and my ego, so that actually the fear, for me, it's just not relevant. Because people need to be fed.
I still get a little twinge sometimes. Depends on the setting. Anxieties and fear. I don't think that really, there's some times where I'm totally relaxed, but there are many times where it feels anxious. And particularly it feels anxious in the preparation. We'll talk more about that with technique. It feels anxious in the preparation. The moment I start talking, it leaves pretty quickly. If I know where I'm going, because that's another story. But that anxiety, we'll get into that.
I didn't say I'm never afraid. I just said it's irrelevant. What does it matter?
Right.
Fear is an ego thing.
Right.
The message.
Right.
The message is more important than my ego.
That's it.
One of the things I've noticed is there's more pausing. I don't know whether that's what's going on inside you or what's bothering you around that. But the pauses allow me to stay with you. As opposed to if someone's reading from a script and you don't know every word and everything's coming out and it's all coming really fast, if I'm sitting listening, I can't. They're like 3 sentences. I'm still trying to process what they introduced.
No, that's a good point. Yeah.
And so what I'm finding here in this moment, there's the pauses, waiting for the next word, allows me to process what it is, and I feel more present listening to what's being said.
That's really good. Thanks. That's very helpful. And I would say from this side, from the speaker's side, nobody knows if you're pausing for effect or whether you just forgot what the hell you were going to say. So from this side, it's okay too. I mean, it's something about how you process. I mean, how we process when we talk naturally. There are more there's more pauses. I mean, that is not to say that there are good script readers. I'm not saying that at all. I mean, people who use text, there are people who can use it very effectively and do almost everything that we've talked about. We just think this is a neglected style that goes to the heart of the individual who's speaking. At this point, Dr. Kennedy and Reverend Schick introduced the first small group session used in the Preaching by Heart program. In groups of 4 to 6, participants share their hopes and fears and practice speaking without a script. In this way, they gain the confidence needed to take their next steps. The materials used to guide these sessions can be found on this website. If you are interested in bringing this program to your area, simply go to the homepage and contact us through the events sign-up form.